Welcome back to NTV. This is Front and Center, your weekly governance and political show where we try and make sense of what's happening in this country. And tonight we want to take a look at the state of the bipartisan talks between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Today there were planned protests that did not happen. That was following yesterday's events where Kenya Kwanza heeded to some of the demands made by Azimio. The major one, removing the Eldas Member of Parliament, Adan Kainan, from that bipartisan committee, and subsequently Azimio cancelling their planned protest for today. But Azimio have made fresh demands, insisting that the talks must be concluded within the next 30 days. We want to get into that, plus also Kenya's debt situation as President William Ruto continues to shape his administration and policies. There seems to be quite close attention from the International Monetary Fund. Just what gives? Are we seeing the days of the SAPs of the 1990s again? And what does this mean for this country? I'm joined in studio tonight by political editor here at the Nation Media Group, Rosalind Obala, governance analyst, Professor Gitile Naitule, and lawyer Annabel Njoki. Strategist and governance analyst Fred Ogola will be joining us in a short while. Let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me tonight. Annabel, if I can begin with you. We have seen protests halted by the Azimio side. Kenya Kwanza heeding some of those demands by Azimio. Are we seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, do you think?
Too soon to tell.
Okay.
We've had quite a bit of back and forth of this issue from the time it started. Initially, it looked like it was going to be a sane process, but it has very quickly degenerated into chaos and disorder. So hopeful that maybe, there's still room to salvage it.
Right.
But I have to say, as an honest individual, that I don't really have much confidence in it as at now. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Annabel is quite skeptical. Prof, yes. No protest today, but we have fresh demands from Azimio. Is there an end in sight to this?
I think there wouldn't be. There wouldn't be because, you see, political agreements come largely because sort of interest. And the objective of any government is survival.
Right.
This government is in a very tight corner. Really tight. For them to survive, they need the other partners. But we also have a tradition here as Kenyans. We don't really go over the cliff because it's very easy to do so when you get very strong-handed. We work more like King George of England.
Yes.
When the monarchies in England were difficult, very conservative, refused to bend, they were toppled one after another. The Hungary, Austrian Empire, monarchy down, republics created. Germany, the Kaiser down, republic created. But the King George in England, he gave way. He always was giving in, and that kingdom survived. It survived up to today because he was flexible. When, you see, after the Great Depression of the 1930s, this is what this man did. Right. He was seen as a conservative. And the liberals who are leaning socialist or communist, they actually won a narrow margin in the election, just like UNDA now won a very narrow one.
And you're seeing similarities to the Kenyan case today.
Exactly. And the king actually was able to push them into a government of national unity with the conservatives.
Right.
And that arrested the passions of the communists, as it were, the socialists. And England got out of the depression actually faster than the other countries. So we're in an economic situation, and I believe those people who are running the UNDA government are not stupid. They won't survive. Because they want to survive, and they are the ones with the power. They are going to talk to these fellows, and they are both going to have a solution.
All right. Rosalind, tell us more about these reports of a call from State House to Raila Odinga to not have today's protests so as not to put the country in bad light, given the kind of dignitaries we are seeing in the country. What do we know so far?
Thank you, Ben. I think some of the Azimio leaders who have actually talked to us, some in confidence, some addressing the matter, yes, they've been trying to go around it and saying that they have decided to give the matter a chance for the bipartisan talks, because one of the demands that they wanted was that Adan Kane and the Elders MP, who was elected under Jubilee, should actually be recused from the talks.
Right.
And that happened yesterday when we saw the statement by the Kenya Kwanza side saying now they have replaced him with UDA's SACU MP, Dido Raso. But that was just one of them. When you talk to the leaders who actually are aware of what happened and who were briefed by Azimio leader Raila Odinga, because remember yesterday they had a crisis meeting in the evening before they were able to release their statement to stand down today's demonstrations. They talk about the president reaching out to Kenya Kwanza side, to Azimio side, and his excuse was that we actually need to come back to the table. And if the issue was Canaan, we have addressed it. If there are other issues that are there, we can actually have a framework of how to address them, because look at where the country is. On Tuesday when we had the demonstrations, we had the Prime Minister of Japan visiting the country. We are expecting the German Chancellor to come to the country, and it's happening at a time that we have the first session of the UN Chief Executives Board meeting that is chaired by the UN Secretary General. So this is a meeting that has brought all the heads of department of the UN. That's the funds, those were the funds, the program, and the projects, and the organizations. So this puts Kenya in a very tight spot, that all these people are there, where we are also talking about the World Bank, we're talking about representatives from IMF, right, UNHCR, just to mention a few, that all these people are actually converging in Nairobi, and we are having demonstrations. And most of these leaders who have actually had a conversation with President William Ruto, one of the issues that have struck out is the issue of peace and security in the region. So how do we actually discuss issues of Sudan and the other countries, and yet our country home is burning? So we actually have to start from home. Charity starts from home, yes, before you actually look into the region and say that we are spearheading these talks and we have already settled our discussions at home. So this is what he said that necessitated that conversation and the call that actually the opposition side received from the president. All right.
Prof, welcome to the show, Ogola. What do you make of the happenings of this week concerning the bipartisan talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza? I mean, Azimio halting protest today, Kenya Kwanza, on the other hand, removing or accusing the Elders MP from that committee. Are we seeing progress, do you think?
To my own opinion, thank you very much. Sorry for a slight arrival here. I was in Voi, where we were also just talking about similar things. So if you look at the demands that Azimio put before this calling off of the mass action, you ask yourself, have they got them? And the fact that they are ceded to call off the mass action without getting the demands they have on board, it means that they have lost the talks before they begin. Because as a good student in strategy,
you think so?
Most of the things you lose before they begin. For example, there's a match taking place, Manchester, I don't play which team. There's a team that has lost before this match begins. Because we look at what you have. For example, one thing they say...
It's definitely Manchester United that has lost.
Yeah. For example...
Sorry for another day.
For example, Ben, you look at what we're trying to say here is that they ask for extra parliamentary bipartisan negotiation, isn't it? Have they been assured that's going to happen? They ask for a negotiation akin to the national accord. Have those been put in place? They are going to Parliament, which actually, according to many people, says that there were many MPs which were Azimio-leaning MPs who are voted. Azimio should be majority, and they are not. It's Kenya Kwanza that is the majority in Parliament. Azimio is the minority. Just like the way they lost that one, they have also lost this one, because actually Parliament will pay and spend a lot. So if they were wise, they could have done this negotiation outside Parliament, Because remember, that parliament they lost. It was acrimonious the day Moses Wetangula announced that it is Azimio that has 0 MP in parliament. For me, the making of it is the making of not winning it. And then if you look at the same time, the demands they are now saying as an excuse to call off is removing Kainan. I can tell you that all these 14 people are smoke screens. The real negotiation is between Raila Amolo Odinga and William Ruto. Okay. And that's why I've been saying we better go for multi-partisan to bring more people who can make these people look at the larger picture of what are the issues rather than just talking about bipartisan. 2 people.
Prof, let me give you 30 seconds to respond to that.
Yes, I really think that calling off was a strategy. I think they need to show that they are flexible and they are not underliners. And also, look, these are Kenyans, as Mio. They may have disagreements with that, but they need the dignity of their country. So when you have all these visitors here, I think it's a wrong time for us to be throwing stones at one another. So we can start throwing after they leave. So I think I wouldn't want to fraud them, but I can understand what you're saying though, that sometimes you take an advantage. You see, you are seeking political power. That's why they are saying open the server.
Yes.
So the time to demonstrate that Ruto doesn't have control, who down it today, if you really want to go from bare knuckle. But I think these people are patriots.
All right.
Okay, they love their country.
Let's pause it there. Let's take a quick commercial break here, pay a bit of bills and come back. And want us to talk about the issues that are being raised now. The two sides seem to appear on what needs to be done, but are disagreeing on the how. Don't go too far. This is Front and Center.
Mortain Doom, with its trusted formulation. It provides protection in seconds. So spread the Mortain Doom message of how we, you and I, can fight to end malaria.
Mortain Doom, Kenya's #1 choice.
With Molfix pants, changing diapers is now very easy. I tear and take off the used Molfix pants and pull the new one up in a moment. Wrap up the used diaper and throw it away. Come on, mothers, try Molfix baby pants and be part of our happiness movement.
Hi there, my name is George Washuri Optiven, and we are very happy as Optiven introducing to you Achievers Paradise Gong. We are calling you to be part and parcel of the fastest growing satellite town in this city. Optiven is doing water reticulation, nice fence, tree planting, solar street lighting, beautiful, well-compacted marble roads, and we are developing and building a beautiful Achievers Gate. This is a chance that you cannot afford to miss. Call this number 0790 300 300.
Jumi ni get actress. Nadhani sina insecurities. Kuna body parts kwa itaka zionekane. Lakini after kutumia nice and lovely flawless bio body oil, results nazo, nime reclaim my confidence na nika fade away my fears. New nice and lovely flawless bio body oil. Imeboreshwa na 4 natural oils. Kupunguza stretch marks, ku-even skin tone na ku-improve firmness. Flawless is a feeling. 9 out of 10 Kenyan women agree it worked for them.
Welcome back to the broadcast. You're watching Front and Center here on NTV. Many thanks for staying with us. Before we go back to our discussion with my panel tonight, I want to get you some more details from some updates from the annual Journalism Excellence Awards happening at the Safari Park Hotel. And there are more wins for the Nation Media Group. Iga S. Muigai has won the Cartoonist of the Year at the annual Journalism Excellence Award. Congratulations to Iga. We also have Angela Okech, who has won the Gender Reporting awards at the Annual Journalism Excellence Awards. In that category, it was all NMG. All nominees were from the Nation Media Group. Keep them coming. We shall be getting you more details as soon as we get them. Back to our discussion. Madam Wakili, we get the idea that both sides have agreed on what needs to be done in terms of some of those proposals, like creating an office of the leader of opposition, prime minister we are hearing, but the how seems to be the problem. With an Azimio preferring a more permanent changes through a constitutional referendum. Where do we stand? What are our options?
You know, I think the more this scenario plays out, the more we keep revisiting comments or positions we've previously held either here with you or with Olive in the morning. The last time I was here, I said that there are issues from the policy session paper number 3 of 1986 to date that are consistently recurring. They keep coming up, which goes to show that there's issues. Number 2, there's the fact that draft 0 of Bomas, when taken to Naivasha, is not what we got when it left Naivasha, which is what we currently have as our constitution. And at the point of that document being voted yes or no, there were, do I call them promises, that for you who are saying no, yes, we acknowledge that the document has certain gaps, it has certain failings. However, let us just pass it as is, and then we will revisit it. So from 2010, there's been a hanging promise that this document would be revisited. At this point, I don't see us having, what do I call it, a pragmatic and honest conversation without us having to go to a referendum. I simply do not see it happening, because that is the one thing that everybody across board seems to be agreeing on. There are certain issues that need to be addressed. But now you have people who are willing to go the referendum way, and there are others who are stalling. They do not want to go the referendum way. But in as much as you're saying, let us not go the referendum way, what other alternative are you giving us that is going to give us permanent solutions? And I will reiterate what I said here the last time when I was with you. It is not that we do not know what our problems are. The fact that certain issues keep coming up consistently for over a period of 20 years goes to show that we know what our problems are. The issue we have is that we cannot seem to find a lasting solution in terms of how to address the problem. So we have this habit of doing it piecemeal, or we envision the solution 100%, but when it comes to the implementation, we fall short. So there's an element of goodwill, primarily political goodwill. There's an element of just willingness from the Kenyan people and us falling short of holding our leaders accountable. So I don't know what it is we're going to do differently this time round to ensure that we do not come back to the table to have this conversation for, say, another 15, 20 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Prof, this conversation sounds like the BBI conversation to an extent of last year or the last months of the Uhuru administration. What is the best way forward?
Well, first, I don't think there's an agreement on anything. I think what was in the Daily Nation today, I think is UDA propaganda. Because, or an assumption that because these other fellows are selling BBI, and we are now embracing BBI, we are therefore in agreement. That's not a correct position.
Yes, yes.
Because you need to set it down. If you need to be careful not to confuse process with outcome. Because I think what he's saying is that we are falling short because we always confuse the two. When we wanted section 2A removed, we removed it, went to multi-party, and they thought we have arrived there, only to discover that what we really needed was a new constitution. So it's very important that if these people want to incorporate the mixing grill, because what they want to do now is have a mix of presidential and parliamentary. Then that has to be, people have to sit it down and look at it carefully. Because the new constitution facilitates that, because it talks about public participation. So it can bring in other groups, so they can see how best to do this because we're still having a president with a lot of power. That's why he was able to do what he just said. As me walked into parliament with the majority in both houses. But because the president has the power and the state resources, so he was able to buy these fellows basically. And then they crossed over because there is weakness in patent discipline. When you cross over, you are supposed to go to the people who send you so that they can send you in your new alignment.
All right.
So we will need a properly structured dialogue, which then leads to a referendum. Because remember, if you touch functions of parliament, you need a referendum. If you touch Article 10, you need a referendum. If you touch the Bill of Rights, you need a referendum. The Constitution has shown in certain areas of it that you cannot deal with the parliament. So if there is anyone who thinks that they can introduce a prime minister, because that is changing the structure of the executive, in the parliament without a referendum, then they are not serious. They are just trying to delay.
All right.
They know someone who will go to court, just like it happened in the BNB, and the court will say, no, no, no. Okay? This is in violation of the law.
All right. Rosalind, from what we know so far from the talk, still early days, and the Azimio side wants it concluded within 30 days. What seem to be the major points of departure for both sides?
Ben, you know, when it started, there was a push that we need to have the accord or just have an extra parliamentary conversation where we were to have people who are not parliamentarians sitting on the table. And that is, I think, is one of the issues that Kenya Kwanza said we cannot do. We are not going to do anything that is outside the law. If we are to discuss anything, then we need to do it within the confines of the law, which is within parliament. But now if you look at the reducible minimums that Azimio has put across, there is the issue of cost of living. There is the issue of poaching of members of parliament by the government. There is the issue of the structure of IBC and the recruitment of IBC commissioners. So if you look at some of these issues that they are raising, there are those that, yes, you can address within the confines of parliament, because we had the IPPG in the 1997, which actually gave us the commission then. So yes, they can say we can have that, and you can look at the replica of that in 2016 when we had the Machozi Mande, when we had the Parliamentary Select Committee co-chaired by then Senator Orengo and Kiraitu Murongi, which gave us the Chebukati team that we had. But still, that you see did not cure, because we are still talking about electoral injustice. And that is what they're saying, that we have to cure that. But if you go down, the problem is not even that. This is a political problem, but requires political solution. The issues that we are talking in now are not strange to us. They were there, they've been there since 2013, 2017, and now we are still having them. They are the issues of people looking at the Constitution to address their personal interests. So this is a political problem that requires political solution. Now again, if you say that you're going to do them in parliament, just as Prof has said, there are those articles that are actually protected in the Constitution under Article 255. So how are you going to address them through parliament? Either if it is about the parliamentary process, then they have to be in Article 256 and not 255. But if there are those articles that require you to go back to the people, then the conversation should actually be taken out of parliament, and then we say, how best can we address this? Because look at what Kenya Kwanza is doing. They have actually amended the standing orders to now have the cabinet secretaries come and respond to questions before the House. The truth is, the executive are strangers in parliament, so they cannot actually come and take over the role of the legislators. That's why we have executive committee chairs who are supposed to respond to the issues. Right. And that was a matter that had been there before. Maybe the solution will be to address the issue of members, the cabinet secretaries not being members of parliament, and then now you have members of parliament as cabinet secretaries, and then they have the latitude to now address this. So if you look at all these issues they're talking about, even in terms of cost of living, who actually passes the budget? It is the legislators. So when they say that we want the cost of living to be reduced. We were just dissecting today the finance bill, and you ask yourself, are we really going to survive with the proposals that have been made?
Yeah.
So if Azimio wants to address issues, let's see them start with some of the proposals that are in this finance bill, so that they say, these are our proposals at the opposition, these are the issues that we need addressed. Because currently what we are seeing is people skirting around, and mostly we are seeing it is more of personal interest being advanced as opposed to the real issues that are affecting Kenyans.
Good points. Prof. Ogola, Raila Odinga, the Azimio chief, he's opposed to the proposals made by the president in December last year. He has likened them to what was in the BBI, and therefore says the president is not being honest, is being hypocritical. Based on that, and what Kenya Kwanza are pushing, are we going to do this in 30 days?
Yeah, Ben, this is a very interesting question, especially coming to me as the leader of Operation Indogatuzi, because we have a bill that we have sponsored, which is public initiative. We've collected 7.8 million signatures, and you know, civil society is big. They have pushed and collected signatures. We're waiting for IBC to be constituted to take the signatures. And that's why we propose that for the first time, if I can talk about what Wakili said, that what will be the solution. For the first time in Kenya, we wanted to have a constitution which is wananchi-led constitution, because it has always been political-led constitution, and then the political interest is what is sorted, and Kenyans remain divided, while the politicians divide what the constitution has brought. For example, the 2010 constitution allowed politicians to divide what was their senator, whatever those positions. But if you talk about the wananchi-led constitution, you'll find that there will be some things which are having deep-sitting issues. And I think that that is the direction to go. And if you look at the opposition that is happening here, I'm telling you what, I've been telling people, no politician is your friend. And all is about their interest. If William Ruto accepted BBI to go through, most likely he could not be president. BBI looked like a succession constitution rather than a constitution that was for Mwananchi. Remember that they said the train has taken off, the referee is inside with the whistle, others can only watch outside. And that's why Kenyans were just watching outside until only Supreme Court stopped them, which means that if we were to let them go what they are going, then we could be having a totally different country. And I can also echo what my colleagues have said. The basic structure doctrine of the Constitution states very clearly that there are some structures that you cannot move away from. We are in a pure presidential system, and we can't move to a parliamentary system through parliament. In fact, parliament cannot create a parliamentary system for themselves without consulting Wanjiko. It's illegal. I also went and actually worked on a proposed, let's say, petition to challenge the president memo that was written to parliament through to the speaker, and stated that immediately they gazette this thing, I'll go to court, because now, even at the moment, you can't go to court because it is still not been gazetted. And before gazettement, you can't challenge it. I actually have the petition waiting for him. Immediately gazette is we are going to court. And I am not threatening. It is whatever I said, I always do. So we need to stop these politicians from creating this chaos. I'm trying to tell you that we are where we are been because of the failed institutions. In fact, I can say this without fear of doubt. We have three arms of government. We have the judiciary, we have the legislature, and then we have the executive. Yeah. What has happened is that Kenya Kwanza has created the fourth arm of government, which is called State House, because all of them seem to report to State House, including the executive also reporting to State House. And that's why Parliament is only doing what they want. Parliament is doing illegal things. An extension. Parliament is just rubber stamping what State House says. Can you imagine, Ben, when I was listening to the interviews for CS interviews, Moses Wetangula, as the chair, tells the CS, congratulations, before you interview somebody? How independent is that? So all institutions which should be independent are not independent. In fact, in Africa, there's a curse. Anything that begins with the word independent is not. Any word that begins with democracy has no democracy, like Democratic Republic of Congo. You can tell me how much democracy exists there. So this curse can only be cured if people will be involved heavily. And I've been telling politicians, the fact that Kenyans are poor The fact that Kenyans maybe are not having these degrees they have doesn't mean Kenyans don't know what they want. In fact, the day we shall listen to Kenyans and incorporate them, our problems will be over.
All right.
I want quickly to say something she just did. And you too, you said you don't go to court. They amended a constitutional provision through amending standing orders. Article 155, sub-article 3, what they did by amending that standing order to allow the ministers to go to parliament offends that article. You can probably look for it and read it. Article 155, sub-article 3. But nobody has gone to court. Okay? The people went to court. They went to court for these assistant ministers. Court banned them from reporting, but I'm told they reported. So even the judiciary right now, we don't have it. Now I want to say this. We did not have a parliament for 10 years under Uhuru Kenyatta. We don't have a parliament now. I think what these Kenyans need to start thinking is how to establish a parliament now outside the parliament, because nothing the executive take to that parliament which it does not pass.
All right. Yeah. I want us to wind up on this. Wakili, if you were to advise both sides of the political divide as we embark on the next 30 days, if that's what's going to take, what would you tell them in 1 minute?
In 1 minute, let's just have honest conversations. It's that simple. Let us just have honest conversations. Like I said, the issues keep coming up. So it's not that, again, I say this, it's not that the issues are not known. They are known. The only problem is the approach that is, you know, whatever side that is coming to the table, coming with, to the benefit of themselves as individuals and their political affiliation, or is it to the benefit of the Kenyan people? One of the today you call me a skeptic. I really am a skeptic. One of the first concerns I had here was, yes, the parliamentary process is good, because I believe National Assembly is a very powerful house, and that is where we should actually start addressing these issues, so that when that fails, then you can come back and tell us about Maandamano and going to Bomas or Serena, wherever it is you want to go. However, if it goes to Parliament, what level of objectivity are we going to be seeing from our parliamentarians? That has always been my first point of concern. Are you going to be arguing on behalf of the constituents you represent, or are you going to be taking marching orders from whoever your party leader is? Secondly, it's, are you really truly concerned about the cost of living, or are you using that as a means to an end? Because the reality is, and I've said this again, we cannot bring down the cost of living overnight. In fact, history has proven time and time again, once the cost of living has shot up, bringing it back down is so difficult. The best you can do is equip or try and support your people so that they have a bit more money in the pocket to be able to purchase whatever is there. So let us, for the first time, have honest conversations, and again, challenge to the Kenyan people. It is not enough to know what it is we want. If we do not make it clear that we require it of the people that we elected into office, then we're just playing a zero-sum game.
All right. Yeah. On that bombshell, let's take a quick commercial break here on Front and Center. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we shall try and train our cameras on the president's and his administration's plans around debt and fiscal policies vis-a-vis what we are seeing from the International Monetary Fund, which has praised Kenya's economic journey. We'll get into that shortly. Don't go too far.
All transactions with DTB are secure. Achieving more for you is the least we can do. Because at Diamond Trust Bank, you don't just bank with us, you bank on us.
Mtoi amepewa 3 days alipe school fees. Gadhani mara ngapi nimekuambia tupeleke mtoi shule ya gava na utaki kunisikiza. Unaisisa hapo mpeleke shule ya private na hata hauna pesa. Shika.
Start your life here. It's not enough for me. It's just not enough. You don't know what they do to girls like you.
I think it's Avina. Cindy. That's her name.
Sorry, who is your father?
That's a I'd had another family, another wife.
Oh, you're here.
Friends becoming family. Home-cooked meal, ice-cold Coke. That's the recipe for magic. Make your mealtime more magical. Buy any participating pack. Check under the cap to get your code and stand a chance to win free food shopping for a year, plus millions in instant cash, airtime, and shopping vouchers.
Shauri gani kwani wewe yabani kiwa na experience ya kupiga simu? Ni siku yako ya kwanza ya kupiga simu, abani harakisha mimi. Sisi ni watu wanapenda kupeleka bole bahali yake. Unafikiria mimi kutoka Wajir kutembea mpaka kuenda Isli mguu na bado nasukuma garmia ni kitu ya dakika mbili? Huwa patient mimi atashika simu. Bani kasirisha mimi nakuwaga mtu mbole sana.
To get Waria, dial star 811 star 933 hash. Skiza, na nation.
Welcome back to the broadcast. You're watching Front and Center here on NTV. Now, against the backdrop of global headwinds, we want to take a focus on the president's and his administration's fiscal policies. Economists have been reporting a fall in Chinese loans, and that fall seemingly pushing the president and his new administration to look at the IMF and the World Bank. And we have seen a number of things that have been compared to that. Chinese loans dwindling. We're seeing the new university funding proposals by the government that we saw yesterday. The president cutting down on new projects, and of course stopping of subsidies, something that has not gone down very well with the opposition. Prof. Ogola, let me begin with you. What do you make of this? Is it a big deal, or is it normal given the global economic circumstances?
First of all, let me state that the global economic circumstances on a meeting that took place, they call it a spring meeting that took place in Washington, stated that the global economy is not performing well generally, and Africa was having so many challenges. But that notwithstanding, there are some countries in Africa that are doing very well. And Kenya is expected to be doing well, if you like, given the economic parameters which were there. I was looking at the Nation of today that was talking about the issues of how different sectors perform in terms of growth. And there was some misreporting there because no one was talking about the issue of COVID, that the COVID year made the economy shrink. Now the growth rate that took place in the other years, you cannot just compare without not acknowledging the issue of COVID-19. But nevertheless, there should be a point of concern because, look, the Eurobond that was being done by the Kenya Kwanza government did not perform. And for me, it all boils down to one thing, trust. You know, economy, Ben, is very emotional. Economy is emotional because, like now, when you hear those messages, people are saying that economists are warning, everybody else wants to see if economists are warning, why do we put our money to an economy where there's warnings? And these warnings started coming from the current Kenya Kwanza government. The day they were sworn in, they started warning us. They told us that it is a dilapidated economy. Then they're telling you they want you to invest in this economy. Is your very words that you want to hit at the former administration, at the same time you want to bring what is called trust into the economy. When you hear this word, which was used during the global financial crisis, it was called credit crunch. Now, as a professor, credit normally means trust that you can. So when credit crunch means there's a collapse in trust. So there was a collapse in trust in the global economy. That's why the economy was crumbling. And Kenya has been a victim of a cause of its own suffering by starting to say, we are doing very badly. All these things we are reporting, and actually people just say them. When someone says these things, they actually start to affect people. So there's a good need to concern. For me, the first step, because we're not here to cry, is that we have to breathe fresh air in this economy. remove austerity measures into this economy and bring stimulus measures into the economy. What is a stimulus measure? A stimulus measure is whereby a government can increase investment in the public sector or spending in the public sector that can spur even the activities in the private sector, and therefore economy gets more confident, people start doing business. But even when you are hearing all the time, for example, universities, you are a professor, they are hearing, we are cutting training. So if you hear, when you are a professor and you train and you hear that we are cutting training, we are cutting on this, we are cutting on that, you're just hearing cut austerity measures. And then let me tell you what, I'm an economist. I believe that a government should spend to the point of getting a budget deficit if everybody must get basic necessities. Anytime nobody is getting basic necessities, the economy will suffer. This is an economic imperative.
All right.
So what I'm trying to say for them for now is that the government need to breathe fresh air in the economy, breathe some air of trust, aura of trust. But the Chinese, between the Chinese and the West, these are just geopolitics. It does not matter where the money is coming from, because even the Chinese have debt. Remember, Kenyan debt to GDP is around 75%. The US is 275%. Yeah. So the issue of the debt is not the issue. The issue is that in which currency is the debt sitting? Do you know why the US with the 275% of debt is not hurting them? Because their debt sits on a dollar. For us, our debt sits on we take in debt, we have to collect in Kenya shillings and pay into dollars, and that FX cost is causing a lot of instability. All right. And now with the foreign currency not doing very well against us in Kenya, we have more risks just because of that. But the issue of 75%, while IMF is right by saying we are performing well, the economic indicator on debt is well. But the point is, at what cost are we doing well? That is the most important thing. The cost of which these loans is very high.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, who is in the country, I believe, has lauded or exuded confidence in our economic recovery program. Rosalind, some people are quite jittery at the way we are getting too comfortable with the IMF. Well, is that something to be worried about?
It depends with how we look at it, because remember, Uhuru's administration looked east. They were more cozy with China and Japan. And the same happened under the late Mwai Kibaki. But during that time, you can actually see some of the projects that he started. He did the Thika super highway. Under Uhuru Kenyatta, we are talking about the Nairobi Expressway. We are talking about the SGR and other projects. But when President William Ruto came on board, I think one of the things he said that he was going to scale down on borrowing. They're not going to launch major projects, and they are going to concentrate and not even borrow money for recurrent and development, and ensure that whatever we have, we are able to sustain. And if you look at since President William Ruto assumed office in September, he has actually had many meetings with the West, the US, the UK. He even went for the US-Africa Summit in December. How many times has he engaged the East? He only met the Chinese ambassador in October, where he was saying that they are able to have engagements. You saw he went to Korea. And I think for the first time we have seen the Prime Minister of China coming on, of Japan coming to Kenya. Yep. And Japan has also had many projects, JICA and the others that have been in Kenya for a while. So this is again the struggle and the charm offensive of Africa. Who best will have to sit best? Is it the West or is it the East? Now, by having the first special session of the UN meeting that we are talking about here, all these big shots, the heads of the UN under the chair of the UN Secretary General, who is chairing the Chief Executives Board meeting here for the 2 days, today and tomorrow, actually tells you that where they sit is about the advancing the financial support to the African institutions. And I think that is where William sits, to see that if I am cozy with these people, then even in terms of the restrictions that IMF has put in place, that the World Bank has put in place, we can actually have a soft landing ground and also renegotiate the concessional loans. Because remember, under President Uhuru Kenyatta, when they decided to retire the expensive loans, the Chinese loans, they were talking about concessional loans for a very long time with the IMF and the World Bank. But that came tied with some conditions, such as the job cuts they are talking about. Even the issue of the university institution, those are some of the issues that were discussed. The issue of collapsing parastatals, doing away with the subsidy. So we are actually getting into what the World Bank and the IMF actually wants us to do. But where are we? We are in a corner because at that particular time we had a high appetite for loans. So here is a case where our loans are maturing, we need to pay them, we have the debts, that because if you look at our budget, the first charge is a public debt before anything else. And we have to meet our debt obligations. So because of that, you look at it and you say, if I'm with the East or I'm with the West, where am I comfortable? Where am I going to get more support to be able to sustain the economy and at the same time meet our obligations?
All right. Prof, the most skeptical Kenyans are comparing what we are seeing between the government and the World Bank and IMF to the structural adjustment programs of the early 1990s, which I'm too young to remember, but I've read quite a bit about. Would you say, would you agree, and would you say that in this direction now, the IMF and the World Bank have kind of a grip on the Kenyan economy?
First, let me say that I'm impressed by my two colleagues here because they are very innocent. They are talking about how they can be helped either by East or West. None of them can help you. These fellows look at the personal interest. So if you want to save Kenya, go Kibaki. Look at what we can do right here. Kibaki got the worst economy, worse than this one. But within 3 months, he had streamlined everything. Now, let me come to your answer. IMF has never assisted any country. You surrendering to IMF for the Kenyan government is surrendering the people of Kenya to increase poverty and increase instability, because people will respond to poverty by creating so many problems that the economy is going to pay for it. So what we are doing here is we have surrendered to IMF. The IMF is actually now running the country. Because if you look at the proposal, for example, for the university education, that has been IMF claim that Africa will benefit more by basic education than by university education. So what basically the government has done, it has defunded the university education. I think if you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see that the government has actually defunded university education. The program they have introduced, how would you identify most in Ninde, and those who are not in Ninde? Now, we have to remember, we live unfortunately in a country where corruption is our national religion. So it's going to be there. In fact, you are just opening doors now for corruption in higher education. Because I can tell you, Ben, you can do a survey to your viewers and ask them to tell you how many poor people go to CNDF to go to university or to go to secondary school. Poor people, properly poor people, other than the ones who campaign for the MP relatives, those who contributed for the campaign, the no more real Ninde, okay? Now, don't tell me the government doesn't know that. They know that. Right. But they think IMF will assist. IMF will not assist, will introduce corruption. A lot of Kenyans will not access higher education from now. And I can tell you with all sincerity that this is not a formula for success, because our unique circumstances as a country, our appetite for corruption. So you have to bribe to get that loan, because someone has to determine whether you are poor and what the degree of poverty, because I listen to the president very carefully. So let me say this in short. IMF has never guided a single country to success. And if you know one You can come and tell me one. So what is happening here is, in my opinion also, is when I look at some of these proposals, me, I'm seeing a government that could easily be following into an interesting trap. There is something we say in governance should never happen. If you are CEO and you happen to be the only the most intelligent person in that room, you are in trouble. You need clever people before you who can actually guide you. Right. Something is happening here which is not understandable, but we will see as it unfolds. We are going to see slowly how it unfolds. But right. IMF has never guided a single country to success.
Under Mwakili, what's your view on this? Is the IMF coming in a bad thing necessarily?
I think to couch it as going east or going west is looking at it a bit simplistically, because even you as a person, if you're lending your friends or your family money, at some point you have to identify which one is looking like a debt that is going to be repaid, which one is looking like a bad debt. And like Professor Gola started with, he pointed out that currently globally we have a problem. There's a crisis. There are countries that are faring worse off than others, and it would appear we have quite a huge chunk of African countries that are not doing well. And we know for a period of 10 or so years, China has had very deliberate efforts of lending to African countries. So I look at the decrease in their pumping of funds into Kenya as a way to cushion themselves, because they've already given you so much. They need to start thinking about their tomorrow. On the other hand, on the question of IMF, really, nobody goes to IMF when things are rosy. IMF will usually check in when you're in a crisis. Are we in a crisis? If we're looking at domestic factors, ordinarily you will have decreased income levels, you will have an increase in your public debt, you will have an increase in unemployment rates. I think that it's safe to say we are seeing all those salient features in this country at the moment. If we're talking about the external factors, then you're looking at perhaps a natural disaster that has affected a country that you normally transact with, or an increase in commodity prices, which we saw with the cooking oil, which we have seen with the wheat flour. So it is safe to say Kenya is in a crisis. So then where do you go? Now, the loans we're getting from China, by and large, were project-specific loans. When you're in a crisis, projects are not your priority. Getting to a place of stability and sustainability is a goal. That is, this is why you say, this is why my young people say poverty is the enemy. Right now, poverty is the enemy. We're looking at sustainability and stability. So that now, once you get there, then you can start thinking about the project. So it's not as easy as east or west. I think it's a question of being between a rock and a hard place and having to choose whoever is making the decision in that moment perceives to be the lesser evil. Right. The catch being that with IMF, they'll still finger you, because see, they're trying to discipline you. You are not very, how do I call it? The terms they use is you are not perhaps very prudent with your fiscal policy, with your monetary policy. So then, because they are he who pays the piper calls the tune. Yep. So because we are running to them for help, they get to call the tune. As to whether or not we like it, that doesn't really feature. The minute we've subjected ourselves to their mercy, then that doesn't really feature.
Right. Actually, if there's a government who want to help us, they can. If you look at the statistics at the CBK, over the 10-year period, we borrowed 80-point-something billion. Okay, trillion. 80-point-something trillion. But you look, Parliament has approved 5.6 trillion to pay the same debt. But the debt, that money is not reflecting on the debt. It's like we never pay. It's like we are only been borrowing without paying. So if you look, and I'll send you, we did some analysis before the election, which I would like to send you. Between in June 2014 and April 2023, this government spent 4.1 trillion money that they cannot say it went to any particular project. So we can very easily say that is stolen money. So I said if Ruto government is seriously want to rob Kenya, this is what they can do. They can go after this money.
That's mind blowing. I want us to.
I'll send you the
I want us to wind up, and I want to come to each one for your final thoughts. Prof. Ogola, tell me what then is a way forward? What's the best way forward for the government vis-a-vis what we are seeing? A lot of tax plans by the government, like today, just part of the finance bill of 2023. There's a proposed 35% pay as you earn for anybody earning more than 500,000 shillings per month. There's also proposed 40%. So just 35%, and not entirely unexpected. What do you make of this taxing by this government vis-a-vis what we are seeing with the IMF and China loans which are maturing?
Yeah, first of all, Ben, what is happening here, if I just talk about the issue of IMF, then I talk about that one. You know, there's something African states doesn't know, that there's a difference between conditional facility as a loan and a precautionary facility as a loan. Conditional facility means that your head is underwater, you can't breathe. So someone is trying to get your head underwater. Means you are actually have a bad economic indicators, you can't pay your salaries, you cannot be able to do what, you can't import something. But precautionary facility means that we know that 5 years down the line, or 2 years, or 1 year down the line, our income levels will be lower, we cannot afford XYZ, so you borrow money so that you can actually put that money in a certain projects to stop you from being in trouble. Okay. Like for example, if you are employed and you see that you'll be fired in 3 months from now, you can go and tell your father, please, can you give me a loan? I set up a business so that by the time I'm fired, I have something to jump into. That's precautionary. So I'm sure this what has been very little been explored, yes. And it's not in the interest of IMF to give you that facility. It's in the interest to give you conditional facility, and they don't tell you the truth. So now going back to the issue of tax.
Yes, you have like 40 seconds.
Yeah, so on the tax thing, what is clear is that we have unstable tax policies in this country, which shows that Kenya Kwanza government, or government for in that matter, have lacked priority. They talked about the issue of bringing manufacturing, bringing productivity, creation of jobs. You cannot tax yourself to prosperity. And by creating more taxes, like I've been seeing where they tax people with fake beards. So who will live in Germany who has fake beards? I was looking at them and wondering exactly what is the guy I'm trying to say. There are some things that if you go, for example, some of them are going to even stagnate digitization. In fact, that one for me are some of the things where is the greatest opportunity that if Kenya misses by having bad tax policy does not happen. And all the investors, one reason why we are suffering here is that we have not enough foreign direct investment. Why are we having less? Tanzania is getting more now, Uganda is getting more, because we have unstable tax policy, and therefore we are getting capital flight out of the country, and of course labor flight as well.
Thank you. Rosalind, 1 minute, give me your final thoughts on everything.
Yeah, Ben, I think we need to start with the policy that Kenya Kwanza came on board with. What did they put in place to actually cushion Kenyans? Because what we are seeing is a bloated workforce. We are seeing people being hired every day, yet they had talked about austerity measures. We would have seen that in the supplementary estimates of the current budget to actually cut the budgets. But what we are seeing is an expansion of expenditure. Look at what happened to status. Look at even their own advisor, economic advisor, and they actually owning up and saying, yes, there are excesses in government. So I think the address should actually go there. What is SRC doing? When we are having allowances that we can actually not account for, then those are the places we target. When you come to the normal mama mboga, the hustlers, what are you actually doing to them? You're actually killing them. And these are the small people who can actually build the economy.
Thanks.
And the other thing is to congratulate my colleagues. I think NMG has stood tall, and we always do it. We did it last year, we do it now, and I think next year again we'll be shining.
Tumeosha watu sana. Like this, they like to say. Prof, 1 minute only, your final thoughts.
My advice is they look at what the Kibaki did. Kibaki came in, he decided to address the question of wasting in government. So he said, if you foreign trip, I approve personally. If you are going to have a seminar, either in your boardroom or in a government facility. What he did, once you control waste in government, okay, then you can now move to target taxes. Now the tax, when you are implementing the tax, you need to understand one thing. For the brand maker to make an additional brand, the one they made yesterday must sell. When you have taxes like you are having now, you are sending this economy to depression. People must have disposable income for them to promote the economic growth.
All right. Thank you, Prof. Okili, you have the final word today.
One, it's looking more and more as days goes by as if this government is speaking from both ends of the mouth, specifically the president. And it's sad because his people tend to just consistently land him in an embarrassing situation where you're telling us you want to cut an expenditure, but for some reason your people always seem to have tendencies to spend excessively. So he needs to tone down on that. Secondly is, again, our tax regime. Just today we were having a conversation in our office, and we're talking about how to, where the government has wanted to, or there have been consistent efforts to position Kenya as a lucrative or a marketable investment destination. We cannot have that for as long as our tax regime just keeps fluctuating. We cannot have that for as long as you want to apply one tax percentage to all manner of organizations, all manner of transactions, without taking into context what their realities are, what it is they're bringing to the table. Yeah. So again, it goes back to what I've been saying. Honest conversations, let us be true to what we are saying. Congratulations to the NMG team, and on Rosalind's ending, what is humility?
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Lawyer Annabel Njoki, governance analyst, Professor Gitile Naitule, political editor here at the National Media Group, Rosalind Obala, and economist and governance analyst, Professor Fred Ogola. Thank you so much. We will continue to keep an eye on these issues as they continue to emerge. The finance bill shall continue to analyze it and dissect it for you, make sense of what's happening in this country. Thank you for watching Front and Center this Thursday night. For all of us, we appreciate the privilege of your time tonight. And congratulations to all my colleagues across the profession and, of course, here in this building for your excellence in our journalistic work. I'm Ben Kitili. Good night from Nairobi.
This is NT.